Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, like wherever the part of the world you are. But we are live from the Azure Developers community, and we are here presenting you the best things that we can afford to give. Like, trust me, there has been a lot of hush hush of saying that we just are in the communities which are in the tier 1 cities and tier 2 cities and things like that, but we are focusing something more, even even to the tier 3 cities, where we are just popping up our community members and we are just saying them, hey, let's go there, let's give that amount of interaction for all the developers there. So I think probably this is the developer community where we are focusing more towards the empowerment of all the developers and all the community folks there. So I think we are all thankful to this AZ Dev community India, which is just organizing a lot of events like this. So we'll be coming out with a lot of events like this. So stay tuned by subscribing to our channel, follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and wherever you can find us. So this is azdev.confirm.com. This is the website where you can just go there and just look at all the things that is happening in our community. So this website is completely dedicated for that. Just go get in there, just subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you will be done with it. So let me just give a quick intro on what we also are planning to do. So there is an initiative from AZ Dev Bengaluru chapter, which is basically community hustler stuff, where we are actually trying to understand more of what this entire journey is all about. Like, we really want to understand how this developer community is popping up and how can we help them in even more things. So a simple way, we just have a reason to make what's that right approach for you, what is suitable for you, what we can teach. You can really suggest us if you want some new sessions and new topic or things like that. Also make sure that you get the best out of all the sessions that we are doing. So first things first, we need you to get the Azure portal free subscription done. I'm saying you why? Because every time when you're popping up with something as like, I just want to do a project, but I don't have an Azure portal, so you just leave it off like that. And we don't want you to leave it off like that, and we just want you to continue the same thing. This is not something like we are doing not to just endorse Azure, but like we are just saying you how to get that right approach in order to get that right project in your hand, which comes out just by your coding, just by some clicks on the Azure portal as well. Build something new from your side and try to publish it. Simple things, simple. What you have to do is you just have to go there, you just have to just get the free account. What just gets cut is only 2 rupees. It's just to verify that you are a human being and things like that. So human things. So we'll guide you. Will if you are stuck in any of the problem statement, we are here to guide you with any of the problem statements. Like, you can really go out and say that we have done something right. We just want that to be there with us. So of course, now we are doing a project, you get stuck at some given point of time and you want some help, we are there for you. And this will be a project which you'll be building for yourself, and also we get a chance to understand something more about the portal also. So writing a CFP for the webinar that you want to give, simple as that. When you have something as a gyan, you just share it. So what you do is you just write a CFP and you just come out and just do that. So the pros of it is something like it just projects on your CV. You will be having some projects. You will be having a community initiative. That means you will be a team player. That's what interviewers ask and things like that. Make the best of the learning that we are giving. And we are just the same old tech guys. We just want to write some papers. We just want to write some articles. And if you want to write any research paper, just reach out to us. We will guide you about the paper and things like that. So we both shall have the same learning, folks. So that's it, folks. I hand over my session to Ashirvad for the session, and hopefully everything gets done. So thank you, Ashirvad. This is the pros of it. And yep, Ashirvad, you can join.
Thank you, Vishwas. So thank you for inviting me to host a talk on getting started with Azure Static Web Apps. So today we're going to learn about this particular new survey which just went into GA. It is Azure Static Web Apps. So hopefully you people are excited as well as Vishwas is. So let's get started. So this is Ashirwad, and I work as a software engineer. The ways this is my blog site, this code with Ashirwad. You can find all my blogs over there. So let's get to the agenda of the talk. So we're going to start the talk by discussing about how applications are made these days. Then we will see what are the ways in which we can deploy static web apps or single page applications in Azure. Then we'll see what Azure Static Web Apps is, and why should we use it. Then we'll have a demo on how we can use Azure Static Web Apps to deploy our applications. And there will be a Q&A session where you can ask me your questions. Let's get started. So how are modern applications built these days? Earlier, we used to have an application which was completely built using a single language. It was more like a server-side project, more like ASP.NET MVC web applications. But these days, we build application in a different way. We build our whole client-side application using an SPA by using some front-end framework like Angular, React, or else if you're building WebAssembly based application, then you can use something like Blazor, and you build your backend, the backend of your project, and by using some web API framework like you can use Express.js and Node.js if you're a JS guy. If you're a .NET guy, then you can use ASP.NET Core Web APIs. If you're a Java person, you can use Spring Boot. And then you can expose those REST endpoints of your APIs to inside your client application, and they can send requests to your API, get the response, show the whole data to your user in a verified way. So this is how applications are built these days. So let's get to the topic of today's talk. Getting started with Azure Static Web Apps. So before going there, we need to know what are static web apps or what are static websites and how can we deploy them in Azure. So is there a way to deploy these websites in Azure? So static websites can be anything like, which has some HTML, CSS, and some content. So, this can be an image, or else like uh, JavaScript script, or else it can also be a PDF document. It can be a lot of things. So there are different types of static contents. So how can we store that? How can we store it in Azure, and how can we let other person access it? So if you see, your single page applications are just static files. They run on your end user's client, which can be a web browser. You can just, whenever you send a request to this particular client applications of yours, it loads all the files, all the static content inside your web browser, and it starts processing. It doesn't do anything on the server side. So this is the first, you only make the first request to your server. It gets all the file in your client machine, that is your web browser, and it starts processing. So every time you needed to send some data to the server, you make a call to your web API, which is there in the server, which is running in your server somewhere around, wherever you have hosted it. So it sends the data over to this REST API by making a API call. Then it sends the data. If you ever wanted to fetch anything, it again makes a call and gets the response from this API, and this is how things work. So how can we deploy these websites? So one way is to deploy them inside an Azure web app. So you can spin up an Azure web app inside an Azure app service with a target of Node.js, and deploy your web applications over there. Use SPAs. So I'm specifically telling about SPAs right now. So if you have one on Angular, you can do that. If you had on React, you can also deploy it to an app service. And there are certain advantages which also comes when you deploy your SPAs inside an web app. You get auto scaling as well as manual scaling capabilities. You get SSLs. You also get to configure custom domains. So you get a lot many features. So is there any other way apart from Azure Web App to deploy your static websites in Azure? Well, yes, there is. You can also deploy your application on Azure Storage. And as far as I know, this is the cheapest way to do it. So you can just enable inside a storage account that you want to deploy website over there, static websites, and then you need to store all your contents of this SPA inside the $web folder and get the primary URL and just exit it from over there. There are some little things that you need to do, like you need to specify the index page or the index or HTML page of your application, and you're up and running. But there are some issues with this. It's more like you don't get benefits, like you cannot have your own Ssl certificate generated inside a storage account, which app service actually provides you. When you deploy your application inside a web app, you get an opportunity to upload your SSL bindings over there by uploading your Ssl certificates, or else you can also create and manage Ssl certificate inside an app service, but you cannot do those things inside a storage account. Second thing is more like making your applications more available. So this is one issue that that does arise when you deploy your application inside a storage account. These are not geographically distributed. So suppose my storage account is actually spinned up inside central India, and one of my end user is in US, and he is trying to ping my website that is deployed inside the storage account. He is bound to face some latency. So we can completely avoid it using Azure CDN, but we need to do some hard work over here to configure these things. So is there any other way? Okay, we have app service, we have app service and web apps to deploy it, we have storage account to deploy it, but is there any other way? Yes, there is. So there is Azure Static Web Apps. So Azure Static Web Apps gives you a single platform in which you can deploy your backend application, backend APIs, as well as your front-end SPAs. So as I told you, inside the storage account, we can deploy our front-end application as a static website. But what about the APIs? We cannot deploy it over there, right? Same thing with Azure Web Apps. You can deploy your front-end application that are written in this particular JS framework and deploy it. Suppose our backend API was written in .NET Core, you need to create a new web app and with a different, which runs on, which supports to run an ASP.NET Core 3 or .NET 5 runtime. It suppose .NET 5 runtime, and you need to deploy your web API over there. So you cannot deploy your backend API as well as the the backend API as well as your front end app inside one particular instance and get your work done. But with Azure Static Web Apps, you get a one-spot solutions to do all this thing. So this is about how we can deploy static web apps in Azure. So these are the three options in which you can. So what is Azure Static Web Apps? So Azure Static Web Apps is a service in which you can deploy your full stack applications in Azure in a very simple way. So why did I say simple? Normally, when you deploy application, there are certain steps that you need to follow. So you need to set up the repo, you need to create a CI/CD pipeline for the deployments, then you need to set up staging environments and do a lot more stuff. And if you need, if you wanted to have a custom binding, a custom website for your particular application, which you obviously need, you need to also be able to do that. And you also want your application to be geographically distributed so that there is zero latency for your end users to access your website. So with Azure Static Web Apps, you get all these features. Now there's one more concern. When you normally deploy your API, you never know what would be the request. Suppose you're an e-retailer or something, and you have your traffic is quite unpredictable. Suddenly there is an announcement of a Black Friday sales, and suddenly it shoots up. You need to scale your application. Either you can configure an auto scaling option inside your app service, or else you need to manually scale it. Manual scaling is not at all an option. How do you do that? With Azure Functions, you get a serverless way of spinning up more instances to meet your demands. So with Azure Static Web Apps, you get a serverless full stack solution for for your developer workflows. Isn't this? You can easily handle. You can actually focus on the business instead of worrying of setting up the whole CI/CD pipelines, worrying about the scaling part and the geo distribution nature and other things. So you don't need to worry about all these silos. You just need to focus on your business and let the Azure Static Web App get all your other works done. So what are the features, or why should we use it? First thing, we can use it for web hosting. We can deploy our front end as well as the backend application using this. Second, it provides an integrated API support. With Azure Functions, it provides you an out-of-the-box support to host your APIs. So there's one concern. It's more of like the APIs that are there are only it only supports HTTP triggered functions for the time being with with the normal plan, with the free plan that we are going to see in the demo. But you can bring your own function when you go for and pay a paid subscription for this particular service. So next is custom domain. It allows you to configure custom domain for your application. Suppose you had something like www.xyz.com, and but obviously your static web apps actual URL will be something like xyz.azureWebsite.net. You don't want that, right? You want xyz.com as your domain, as your application domain. So you can also configure that. You get free SSL certificates, and these are auto renewed by their own. So you don't need to worry about creating your own SSL certificates, and these are auto renewed by their own. So you don't need to worry about creating your own SSL certificates. You don't need to maintain those certificates anymore, because Azure Static Web Apps is going to do that for you. So you're saving a lot of time of yours. Second, globally, just if the resource where it is, if the resource is hosted in one particular region and the user is in some other region, they can, it is bound to be there is bound to be some latency over there. So to reduce that, out of the box, Azure Static Web Apps provides your app geographically distributed across location, across regions. So what we had to do using Azure CDNs with Azure Storage Account, with Azure Static Web Apps, it is provided out of the box. Now it also has support for GitHub and Azure DevOps integrations. As we saw in the previous slide, we can make CI/CD pipelines for the deployment of our front-end and back-end applications using GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps pipelines. So the next is generative staging versions. So as I told you that, suppose you wanted to deploy an application. So you have deployed an application which is already in production. It is running on the production environment. Now you wanted to add some more features and you wanted to deploy it to the production environment. Before doing that, you have certain previous stages, like you have one for testing, this one for UAT, then this one for then this one for staging, then this production. So whenever you want to merge a particular feature branch into your main branch to deploy it in the production environment, so Azure Static Web Apps provides you with an provides you a mechanism in which you can review all the changes that are being done in this particular pull request. So whenever you are trying to merge something, it will first deploy this one into a staging environment, and there you can just review all the features that are there, whether it is breaking any of the existing features or not. If you are finding it okay, then you can click on merge to merge this, and it will merge into the production environment. It's a really seamless experience. We're going to see about it later in the demo. So later, it also provides us support for multiple authentication providers integration. You can enable authentication using Twitter, GitHub, Azure ID, to name a few. So this is about the features and why we should actually consider this for the deployment of our applications. So it's time for a demo. We had a lot of time discussing about the theoretical part. So let's go into the demo. So just give me a moment. I'm sharing my screen. Okay. So normally what happens is that you can directly create an Angular application or else an Blazor WASM application and just deploy it to an Azure Static Web App. But to do this, you need to create a repo, because this particular static web app will be referencing to your GitHub repository to deploy this application. So right now, I'm going to show you how to do this. Microsoft provides an Blazor starter template. The demo is going to be on Blazor, since I'm a .NET guy. So they provide you a starter template using which which you can use to get started with Azure Static Web Apps. So I'm going to use the template, and I'm going to give my repository name. Let's give it as first Blazor is app AZDev. Okay, I'm giving it as a public repository, and I'm going to create this repository from this template. So it's going to create an repo out of the box for me. So here you can see that there's an API, client share, and other stuff. So it created what we say and project out of the box, which contains a function app as well as a Blazor WASM app. So let's see in my Visual Studio. Let's open Visual Studio and see what this project looks like. So if you can see, this project would look similar to this. So I have an AVA project which has one function called weather forecast function. I'm going to open it. It's pretty similar to the function that we get to the weather forecast API that we get out of the box whenever we create an ASP.NET Core web application or a web API project. It's similar to that. It's going to return some random weather data, 5 records of weather data containing the weather data. So it will contain these properties. So one is of date, temperature, summary, and the temperature in Fahrenheit. So this is a shared model that is used by my function project as well as the Blazor WASM project. So this was my Blazor WASM project. As you can see, there are a few components. One is the index, then this first data and the counter. This first data component actually makes a call to my function app, the weather forecast function over here. So as you can see, since I haven't defined anything on the route, the function name will be considered. API/function name would be the route for this particular function. So weather forecast is. So as you can see, from first data component, it is making a call to the function app. So you may wonder, like, how is it doing that? You didn't specify the base address, like you should mention like HTTP / localhost, then port number, then this. The thing is, I have already defined it inside the app setting, the development JSON. The template actually automatically generates all the stuff for you. And if you look at the local setting example.json file here, you can see that the local HTTP port is configured over here, as well as the course. The thing is, since we are actually working in the local environment, we need to enable course over here and mark it as strict to allow call from different origins. But normally when you deploy it, this local setting.json and this app setting.development.json file will be ignored when you commit all these changes to your GitHub repository. And this is not required, actually, to be honest. So if you wanted to store any configuration files, we will look later how will we do that when we create our Blazor, Azure Static Web App to deploy this particular Blazor app. So let's run this and see how this works. So to run this, you need to do one thing. The thing is, you need to start multiple projects at a time. You need to start your function app first, then you need to start your Blazor app. As you can see, my Azure Function Runtime tool started over here, and it showed me that I have one function that's there with the URL as localhost :7071 API/weather forecast. So whenever I click over here, whenever I try to go to the fetch data component, it's going to make an call to this particular function. Let's wait. Should make a call. Okay, it did. So it's executing this particular function. Then it executed successfully, and after that, you can see that the temperature records are there. So this is how easy it is to work with a Blazor application which works with a Azure Function backend. So we have a function running and everything is good, looks shiny and cool, right? But there are a few things that I need you to have a look at. Inside the client project, which is our Blazor WASM project, you will see that inside our www.root folder, we have something called route.json. So why is it there? Normally, you wouldn't find it inside any of the Blazor WASM projects out of the box. When you create a Blazor WASM project, you will never find route.json file inside of it. So why do we need it? So normally in a SPA application, what happens is that you need to configure a fallback route. So it's more like you made a request to this particular server where your SPA is running. You got the files, you're working through the workflow. But suddenly what you did is that you try to manually go to a particular component like this fetch data. So to go to fetch data, you need to go to your website /fetch data. So when you click at it, the flow remains constant. But if you try to manually go there, it doesn't have a fallback route because, when you host it there, you don't get a fallback route over here. So to configure a fallback route, you need to have this routes.json. So every time you get into an error or your application doesn't know where to go, then this fallback route helps your function to know where where it's supposed to go. So yes, normally your SPA application runs inside an index or HTML page. Inside this particular HTML page, you have multiple components, and the routing happens inside the components over there. So every time you want to manually go to a particular page and you fall back into an error, this routes.json file will come to your help and help you go back to the component, and then your renderer will route it to the required component where it needs to go. Then okay, this is all about this particular thing. So we ran this particular application, we tested it. Now let's let's create an Azure Static Web App to deploy this one. So what I'm going to do is go to my Azure portal. I've already created a resource group to deploy it. I'm going to click on add. I'm going to search for Azure Static. Let's search for Static Web Apps. Okay, let's wait a bit. Okay, so let's click on this. Let's click on create to create a static web app. This is a really simple process, to be honest, to ever deploy your application or or manage them. So we need to select the resource group. I have already selected the resource group, and I name as that of my repo, tst blazor. Okay, tst blazor app. Now, since we are doing it for a demo, I'm going with the free tier. If we are going for a standard tier, there are a few advantages which I'll tell you later. I'm going to select the region as Central US, and since I want to deploy it from my GitHub repo and use GitHub Actions, I'm going to do that. If you wanted to use Azure DevOps, you need to select on others, and you will get a manage token there, which you can use to configure your Azure pipelines. So it will prompt you to log in using your GitHub account. You need your permissions. It's taking a long time. I'm sorry for the delay. Okay, let's try again. I hope the demo gods are happy with me today. It's taking a longer time. I request you people to be a bit patient with me. Okay. Should come. I'm sorry why this page you're looking for. Okay, let me reconnect with a different network.
Oh.
Hey, sorry, Viswas. There was some network issue. Okay, I'm unable to create a static web app due to some reason. I don't know. Just give me one more moment. Let's try again. I'm going to create a static web app over here. Let's pick one. Select the resource group. Let's select it as Dev India. Give it a name. Let's give it as ABC test demo. Select it as a demo. Let's click on sign in with GitHub. Okay, now it came. Perfect. So here you need to give permission to your Azure Static Web App to access your resources. like a repository and create and GitHub action workflow file over there for deploying your application to this particular resource. Let's click on authorize Azure App Service Web Apps. You'd be prompted to enter your password or else your PAT token. It's up to you. So once you do that, it's gonna ask you to select the organization. Since I'm involved with 2 organizations, I'm going to select my personal repo, then personal username as my organization. Then it will ask me to select my repo. That would be Blazor, sorry, test, Blazor, AZDev. Okay, I'm sorry. The app was different. Okay, the app is this. So I need to select the branch. Since I only have one particular branch over here, you can see that I don't have any more branches. So I'm going to select this particular branch. Now you need to select the build preset. It's like the framework or the static site generator which we're using, which we use to build our application, and we want to deploy. Since my one is a Blazor application, I need to configure the app location and API location and the output location for the Blazor app. Since the what we say, name of our client application is client, and this project name of our function project is API. As well as API, and the output location is www, where all our static containers there, as you can see over here. So you can preview the workflow file. So this workflow file will be written inside your repository, and the task of this is to start the deployment process. Every time you either commit some code, you push some code to this particular repository, or else you approve a pull request to merge with your main branch, and it will start the deployment. Let's click on review plus create to create the static web app. So it will just do a validation check. Here you can see all your summaries. Then we can click on create to create our Azure Static Web App, and it will start the deployment of our resource. So when it deployed over this particular resource, it will automatically start the deployment process as well in the background using GitHub Actions. So let's go to our resource. You will see that a deployment is already on way. So if you click over here, or else if you want to see the deployment history, click on GitHub Actions. GitHub runs action runs. You'll see all the history of the deployment being done using GitHub Actions over here. So both the tabs point to the same thing. So here, let's go inside over here to see all the jobs that are running right now. So let's click over here and see all the steps that are being done. So right now, it is starting the deployment process of this particular application that is there inside the repo. So if you go now, if a resource is just created now and you click on browse to see the website, you may face this particular page. But just wait for some time, and after the deployment process is completed, you will see it over there. You'll see the website or your application over in there. So it usually takes 2 minutes to deploy this particular thing. For this particular GitHub action to complete and deploy your application inside the Azure Static Web App. So let's wait a bit. So it usually takes some time. Let's be patient. If somebody wants to have some water, they can have that. So we should wrap up really quickly. So finish uploading files. Should wrap up. Okay, in the meanwhile, let's see a few things. Suppose your application, your API project has some values, like if you have an API key, or else you want to store your DB connection string. We normally, while testing it locally, we normally store it inside our local setting.json. But if you wanted to, when we deploy this local setting.json file is ignored. So how do you add your environment variables? So we can add it over here in the configuration. So I can say API key. and type in the value as Ashirwad. Click on OK. So what this will do is that it'll get the value of the API key from the application setting over here. So here the value is Ashirwad, so you're going to get the value of Ashirwad over here. So this is how you add environment variables in Azure Static Web Apps. Click on save to save the environment variables that you needed in your application. So it's pretty similar how you add environment variables inside the application setting in a web app. To be honest, Azure Web App. You can also turn on application insights. So you can just click on enable application insights over here and click and select yes, and this will what do you say? Spin up a new application insight. Click on save to create one. So we can do that to monitor our function projects. And then for custom domains, you can go here, click on this, and then add a custom domain. I can enter, suppose I'll enter my website, ashura.com. It will ask me to add the C name over there. So it gave me a C name. If I added this C name with my in the records of my domain in the domain manager of this particular website, then all the traffic that is being routed to this particular Azure Static Web App will be routed to my website. So you simply just need to add in CNAME record over there, and you're done. You're up and running. All the traffic will go to this particular Azure Static Web App. Now let's see if the deployment is done. So the deployment is done. One thing we'll do is that we will click on browse to see whether the application is how it looked in our local environment or not. So yes, it is. So I'm gonna click on fetch. It's gonna make a call to our API, and it will give us some 5 random values of the temperature. So I mentioned that we have a function project as a background. So how do we know all the functions that are there inside our project? So we can click on functions, and here we will see a list of all the functions that are there. So as you can see, we have a weather forecast function over here. So I also told you that every time what do you say? Every time you merge or accept a pull request, you're gonna get a staging environment out of the box. So you can see that over here. Right now, I haven't merged anything, so that's why I don't see anything over here. So if I had an over pull request that I wanted to merge inside my plans, then you are going to see a new staging environment created for it over here. And you can see you can browse that application over here. You'll get a link for that, and you can perform an UI testing of the whole thing and make a functional test of that particular feature branch before merging it. So you get you get a preview out of the box, and you don't need to manually configure a staging environment. Or if you want to understand in terms of an Azure Web App, you don't need to create a staging slot here. You get one out of the box. So apart from that, there are 2 hosting plans. So one is the free one that we are using, other is the standard. So as you can see that with the free one, you get only 3 staging environments, but with what do we say, the standard one, you get 10 staging environments. I told you that with this particular static web apps, you can only create function with an HTTP trigger. You don't it doesn't support any input output bindings, or it doesn't support any other triggers. So this is the case with the free tier. Actually, with the standard tier, you get to bring your own function. It can be a managed, or it can be a bring your own. So with bring your own, what it means that if you have an existing function app, you can use that as the functions as an API backend for this particular web app of yours. You don't need to deploy. You don't need to create a new function project, then deploy those functions explicitly to run as a backend for this particular Azure Static Web App. But in the case of a free tier, you need to have a dedicated function app, which only you need to deploy your function with this particular app itself. You cannot bring another function app to work as a backend API of this particular Static Web App or your client project. So this is one. There are a few more things, like you can have custom role management. You can define like who can access this particular component of your application or the whole application itself. You have different roles and You have role-based authorizations. You also get authentication out of the box with different authentication providers. So these are a few things. So I think so let's look at one more thing, the staging slots, right? So what I'm going to do is that, okay, uh, okay, so I think we have covered most of the things over here. So Vishwas, over to you. I'm done.
Yeah, Ashivad, it's very nice that oh shit. Sorry,
Sorry,
folks. Yeah, I
sorry.
get the same image of yours itself. Like, yeah, this is the problem with
Sorry.
the work from home and things like that. We get a lot of frustration back to back to back. And I think community is one such way where you can release all that frustration and stress and you can learn something new. Yep, I think Ashivat, they have some questions now. So, yeah, you can.
Yeah, sure. I have been having a lot of network issues today. I'm sorry for that.
No
That's
problem,
why
no problem.
the authentication with GitHub didn't happen as expected back then. Yeah,
Yeah.
so there is no costing of Ssl certificates. It's completely free with Azure Static Web Apps. I hope that answers your question, Marlon. So how to monitor if any error occurred in Static Web Apps? So this is one other question from Marlon. So you can use application insights to do that. As I showed you there, you can enable application insight to monitor those errors. You can do that for that. And let's see if there's one more question. Can we use Logic app integrate with Study Web? I'm sorry to say this, but you can't, because the only support that we get is that with an Azure function, which is a HTTP triggered Azure function. So you cannot configure within Logic app to do the workflow thing. But yes, if you have an existing function app, you can bring it whenever you're running this static web app with an what do we say, standard tag instead of the free tag. You can bring your own function apps to run as a backend API for your client projects.
Yep, that's true. And there's Logic Apps is something which is different, which is like more towards the microservice and getting to know the complexity, actually reducing the complexity. Static app is something, it's like GitHub and it's just like a command which is running, kind of a thing like that.
It's
It's
not
different.
more like that. Vishwas, is more like, you know,
Yeah.
a service which helps you solve the daily jargons you have to do as a developer,
Yeah.
like setting up the CI/CD pipelines, making deployments, creating staging slots to deploy your application to different staging environments before it goes to the production. Before you move up to the production,
Production.
so it does these things for
A
you out
basic
of the box.
visualization. A basic
Yeah,
visualization of everything which is happening in your system. Like you can really design everything.
yeah, it helps you do all the thing, like it makes the CI/CD pipelines out of the box for you to deploy, to help you with deployment. It provides you a way to it gives you free SSL certificates. You don't need to create your own, you don't need to buy even one. It provides you
Yeah.
out of the box, and you don't even need to renew it, because normally the SSL certificates expire after 1 year. It automatically renews it, so you don't even need to worry about that. And every time you are promoting a branch to merge with a production branch, it's going to create and it's going to deploy a staging it's going to deploy the feature branch into a staging slot where you can perform all the reviews. And if you're satisfied with the review by doing the UI testing and functional testing of your application, you can merge it with your production. Right? If you found out some other issue, or it was breaking any of the existing features, you can just stop it from moving it to the production branch. So it provides you a lot many features. And if you're an Azure DevOps guy, you also have support to deploy this application using Azure pipelines. So you don't need to be confined with GitHub Actions itself. So if you're an Azure DevOps guy, you're a die-hard Azure DevOps fan, you can also do that. The support wasn't there, to be honest, but it came in the first quarter of this year.
Hmm.
So this just got into GA, and I really feel this is a really good service to explore more, and what we say, to deploy our full stack application, full stack serverless application. This is a serverless service. Like, we are using the function in the background, so It
Yeah.
does make sense.
Yeah, that's true. That's true because it's complex. So somehow it's been made easy. So yeah, thank you so much for all the audience who are sitting here. So stay tuned and make sure that you come back to us, reach out to us back and say that if you have any doubts, reach back to Ashibad if you have any queries regarding like what to do and what not to be done. Yep, everything will be
Sure.
sorted from our side. And also make
Oh,
sure that you keep the community hustler in mind and have that free account which Microsoft is throwing like $200 just for you for an year, and you can just work on it. Come back to us if you have any doubts and things like that, and we can work on something new also. Yeah,
and there's
Ashibad.
one more thing I wanted to add up, Vishwas. So this that I have written a blog. So if somebody wanted to explore, like, how can we make an application
Sure,
using
sure. Yep.
using Blazor client app and then function backend, then I have written a blog on the same,
I'll
like
post it
building
here.
it.
I'll post it here.
Yeah.
Sure,
So
guys.
if
It's in
somebody
the comment section. Yep.
So if somebody wanted to, explore how things can be done, how you can build a working project with this. So here I have built an feedback analyzer, which uses multiple services and stores, your feedbacks in a database and fetches it. So this is a sample application which you can refer. So I have mentioned everything that was there in this session, and it just takes a notch above. So since it was a getting started kind of a session, I didn't include a lot of things. I wanted to keep it really simple. How can just get started, use some templates, and get going with. But you can refer this particular article if you wanted to, know how you can build an application and deploy it with this particular static web app. And don't worry if you're an Angular or React or or a guy who uses some other framework. There are multiple starter templates which are provided by Microsoft out of the box. They can go to the Microsoft Docs and get it. If time permits. Okay, just give me a minute. I'll share a link with you, which people
Sure, sure.
can actually refer to deploy it to use other starter templates. Mm, yeah. Just a minute.
Sure, sure.
So there is this what we say Microsoft learning path, which you folks can also refer to have a better understanding of the whole thing, how things are happening. So they have an amazing documentation over there. So you can also refer it there. So this was my go-to material to actually getting started with this Azure Static Web App thing. So I used to refer that whenever I explore this particular service. So I really feel it will be really helpful for you folks too.
Yep. I think you didn't share the link, right? You shared the link. Oh yeah, you shared it.
Yeah,
Yep.
I shared it. It's in the
So
private chat.
guys, yep. Guys, this is the link. So yeah, we also refer to a lot of documentations like that. Yeah, it's so cool. Thank you so much, Ashibad, for this amazing session. I enjoyed it. I hope you all have enjoyed it. And please stay tuned for the future webinars like this. We'll be coming up with a lot of webinars. So yeah, thank you so much, folks. Any
Thank.
queries, reach out to us personally.
Sure, you can
Link
reach
is
out to us
provided.
anytime and ask us questions. We
Yeah.
are very open community.
Yeah. We are very open and we are like we want to empower as much as we can. So yeah, join us. Join us also. Yeah, if possible.
Yes, if you want to become an organizer, you can also reach us out. We manage multiple communities. Vishwas handles the Bangalore community, and I handle the communities in Odisha and Jharkhand. So if you ever wanted to be a speaker or and host a session, you can always reach out to us, and we can schedule one. Right, Vishwas?
Yep, we can do that. So that's what that community hustler was also all about. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much.
Sure. Okay.